want to
know
podcast
with
Chad Ferguson.
Hey everybody, this is Chad and the I Want to Know podcast, a kick-ask podcast. This podcast is a little different. It's an online blogger. I'm going to work really hard not to say your name. I just learned her name today. The blog is called Sex In The YYC, and it's her real-life experiences of sexual activity, I guess, of relationships that you have. She doesn't want to be seen on camera, and we're not going to use her real name, so I'll make up a name. I'm going to call you Karen. Does that work?
Perfect.
I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. We've obviously never done one of these before, so everyone bear with me. You're going to be looking at me for the whole time. So
Sorry, guys.
I guess deal. So yeah, where did the blog start? Let's start with that.
Sure. For me, the blog started in the notes section of my iPhone, and it was something that I was just writing for myself.
Okay.
I was writing about what I was going through at the time as I was going through it. And eventually I had pages and pages and pages of notes. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put this out into the universe and see what happens. And part of it was, it was journaling for me. It was to help me healing as I was going through, a split up. And I liked, having that outlet, I guess, to get out all my feelings. And then when I started publishing it, I started hearing from other people and getting a bit of a response. So it encouraged me to keep going with it. So
is it more the writing that encourages you, or the relationships that you're developing?
It started for sure as the writing, absolutely.
Cool.
The writing was kind of the healing process for me. And then it evolved into something more. People online, on Instagram, through my website would reach out and they would share their stories with me.
Yeah.
Or they would say, I've been through this too, and you're doing a great job. Keep going. There was mostly encouragement. Of course, there was a couple naysayers in there too, and you always kind of take that risk. But
When we sort of talked about before we started that you understand there'll be some judgment of your actions, your blog, your writing, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I guess to give a little background, my blog starts with me telling about an affair that I had on my marriage. And all the feelings and the ups and downs being involved in an affair. And it was my first and only.
Yeah.
It was, I knew that there was going to be some people out there who would judge. Yeah. And I was prepared for that. And surprisingly, there haven't been too many people who have reached out. I mean, I'm sure there have been some people who have blocked me on Instagram, but that's okay.
That's the freedom of social media, is that you're going to have people give their opinions, whether you like it or not, and which we got to be okay with. If you're going to put it out to the public, you have to understand what the public is going to say. So So the beginning, the split up, the breakup, you said you had an affair. Mm-hmm. What led to the affair?
I think it's your standard, I don't want to say it like that, like nonchalant, but I guess it's your standard relationship goes stale. There's a lot of stuff with life going on. I never felt like in my relationship that I was a priority. And then I had this opportunity, I guess, to get that from somewhere else. And it was life-changing, obviously. My life has changed significantly from that experience. So, some of it good, some of it bad.
I know I've never been through a divorce. I have no desire to be in a divorce or to redate or anything like that. I've talked about that lots on the podcast. My previous co-host had gone through a really bad breakup, and some of our guests have gone through bad breakups as well, or divorces. And, I think being cheated on, or either way. So we've had people talk about this in the past. And to me, the keeping it together is the most important thing. So like you said, you didn't feel important in the relationship. So what would you say to people to make sure that, women don't go down this path? Like
Yeah,
you're
geez.
obviously losing somebody that you love. So
Yes.
in a divorce, no matter who's right, who's wrong, whatever the situation is, there's still a loss.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still in counseling and he's still in counseling, and we still actually attend counseling together as part of our co-parenting arrangement, which is healthy. And, part of the thing for me is that I had to realize that I wasn't saying what I needed in the right way for him to hear me.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was saying it over and over and screaming it almost at the top of my lungs, and I wasn't being listened to or heard or acknowledged. And then just so much time passed where neither of us were really putting in the work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this, but it's like a mental checkout. And, I think that he's a wonderful person and a good parent. And I just don't know if I can get that romantic feeling back.
Yeah.
And who knows what'll happen? Maybe someday it'll come back once I've kind of gone through all this and I'm bearing my cross of the affair and everything like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
What would you tell women that felt the way you felt? Because, the end goal can't be divorce.
No,
Right?
no.
It's never, I don't think that's top of the list. Like, oh, I'm going to have 2 or 3 marriages, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah,
not, no
yeah.
one,
No.
or very few people, I would imagine, would stand up at 20 or 25 and say that's what they want to do.
Absolutely. So I think starting the counseling process of earlier
Yeah.
to figure out the I guess the disconnect on the communication level, because like I said, I thought I was shouting it from the rooftops and not being heard.
Yeah.
So then it estranged me even further,
Right.
because I was, in my opinion, I was saying what I needed and I wasn't being acknowledged. And that is, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel wanted. I didn't feel desired.
Yeah.
And then I had somebody who was giving me all that.
Yeah.
And it was a rush.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I've been out with my friends and had someone hit on me, and it makes you feel really, really good when someone other than your spouse says something. But for me, it was I drew a line in the sand. Like, I actually laughed, which probably wasn't very helpful or healing for the other person in the party there. But it's difficult when you want to feel a certain way and you're not getting it. How do you get it?
Absolutely. And then when it started, it was, I want to say it was innocent. I don't know if it, really was innocent. But when it started, it was neither of us were looking to change our home scenario at all.
Right.
We were just trying to basically have a purely sexual relationship and, kind of on a as needed basis,
Yeah.
and kind of fill those boxes that weren't getting filled at home and for both of us, and going back to home life as normal.
Yeah. If I remember, I've only read a few of the stories inside there, but you had originally started with you and your husband talking about either swinging or partnering up with other groups or other people. And so is that where the affair started?
Well, I guess that's where the idea started, for sure. We had discussed, spicing things up a little bit by getting together with another couple. And basically, we had that all arranged. And on the day that it was supposed to happen, my husband, he decided he couldn't go through with it. So
I think that's the story that I read. And
yeah.
you end up going
and
to meet
I
the
still
couple.
went.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely terrified. This couple was complete strangers to me. And I didn't have the safety net of having him with me. And I remember pulling up to their home and I was just terrified. And I was like, what the heck am I doing, But it was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I came home after and I told him about it, and he was very interested to hear all about it. And it kind of spurred on some of our sexual behavior for the next little while, in terms of we would talk about it and get turned on by it and stuff. But
Well, now you're being heard too, right? You're telling a story that's really being listened to.
oh yes,
So that's got to be even feeding what you thought were the problems at home.
yeah, the things that were missing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was being heard for sure. And then somehow it evolved, and I can't really pinpoint exactly how that happened, but he knew that there was something lacking, right, in our relationship too. We were, not stupid in that way, but he would say to me things like, I know you need more. I know you're missing something, so I want you to go find it. So when I went to go find it, so to speak, I didn't think that it was going to be a secret from him.
Yeah.
And there was a definite turning point where I was like, I need to keep this a secret.
Yeah.
And that was a very difficult decision for me to make, and obviously I can't go back and take it away, but it was decided that I had to keep it a secret, and there was a couple times that I kind of tried to bring it up and make it known, and clear my conscience and get permission, I guess. It was what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But I never quite got there.
I remember listening to, it was a radio show, I was going to say podcast, with Dr. Laura Schlesinger. And she talked about infidelity. She talked about honesty. And I was shocked to hear her say that if you have an affair, the only reason you're telling the other person is to clear your own conscience. It's just a release for yourself. That there is zero benefit in telling the other person. And I've struggled with that. So the other thing that I read, book right behind you there, is Dr. Jordan Peterson, and one of the rules of life is that always tell the truth, or at the very least don't lie.
Yeah.
And so he talks about when you lie or when you keep a secret, you're a liar.
Yeah.
And so you treat yourself as a liar. So it's like this compounding effect of and I can imagine the guilt that you felt, and like, how do I resolve this? And as it goes longer and longer and longer, that it's just that much harder, because like, if I tell him, would I tell him it's been 6 months, or would I tell him, oh, we just happened, right? It's hard to come fully clean without suffering massive consequences.
I absolutely agree. I think there's two schools of thought for me, and trust me, I've, been on the pendulum of this decision, for a while. But for me, it is not only clearing my conscience. Part of it is, can I realistically build a foundation with a brick missing? Because I feel like if I wasn't clear about that, there would be a brick missing in the foundation of that relationship. And so will he notice the brick is missing? I don't know. But I'll know that brick is missing.
That's it. That's the problem.
And does that put it on shaky ground? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess I can, part of the reason why I'm a faceless account is, I don't want my family to be, drawn into all this.
You said you had kids, and
I do,
obviously you have a mom and dad, or sisters and brothers, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And, but part of the other part of the reason is that he doesn't know. I've never told him.
About the blog.
About the blog.
Or he knows about the affair, obviously.
He does not know about the affair.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So what led to the separation or the divorce then?
Oh, so I just needed more. And I kind of explain it more in a couple of my entries online. But it got to a point where I couldn't even... I couldn't have my husband touch me anymore. Mm-hmm. It would evoke all sorts of feelings in me. And there was just such a disconnect. And I think that was after a period of time. So at this point, the affair had been almost going on for, you know, a year and a half, and pretty intensely over that time. And there had been feelings that developed there. And
So he must have known or felt something was going on.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
he never asked you?
he never asked me.
Sometimes
And
better not to know.
I know. And there's, you know, I do another entry too about when Christmas passed where I left the home and said I was going to meet up with this person. Like, so my husband knew that I had started looking because we
Yeah.
were looking together.
When he knew about your first episode with the other couple.
He knew about that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then after I had met my affair partner for the first time, and I just wanted to meet him and see if it would be something that I could even do. And as soon as I met him, I knew it was something that I that I could definitely do. And at that point, I made the decision to meet up with him and like solo and not say anything about it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of kept going from there. But there was a couple times where I said, you know, my husband would say, "Are you still talking to this person?" And I was, "Yes, I am." "Do you send him pictures?" "Yes, I do." "What do you send him? Show me." And then it would kind of entice our own sex life at home.
Yeah.
But there was one night in particular where I said I was going to meet up with him and I was going to do it. And I guess the first time that happened where I was just trying to like get some sort of feedback from my husband in terms of how are you actually going to react to this? And so I left and I came back and my husband cried and he was quite upset. And at that point I was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably the cliche selfish thing that every cheater says because I'm in that category now.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought I would be, but I didn't want to hurt him.
Yeah. I would imagine, like, as I was saying before, you obviously married him because you loved him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had kids with him. You had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume most people have a plan where they're going to go, and it's never divorce.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's you know, I can imagine. I don't know what percentage. I looked a little bit into swingers and stuff like that, and I don't know that they can get good statistics on that, on how many families do that or how open that. I'm sure in that community they're very open, but how that gets outside and the statistic is put together would be, I don't know, sketchy at best, I would think.
Yeah.
That how many families are planning on bringing in others, polygamy, whether it's extra wives or husbands or couples. So I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's just something that people don't necessarily, talk about at a table with all their friends and family.
Yeah.
Right?
Were you promiscuous before your marriage?
No. No, I mean, maybe there was like the old after college phase of being single, but no, like overall not.
How old were you when you met your husband?
I was 31.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You were in the same category. I didn't meet my
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
until I was 30-something.
Yeah.
I dated prior to that and just never found the right one.
Yeah.
So you would think at like 30 years old, you're like, you got a pretty good handle on where things are going to go, right?
Yeah.
And it just wasn't the case. So what do you think, I mean, other than your relationship with your husband that led you to want to have these sexual relations that you're having now?
Well, I mean, I guess the sexual relations that I'm having now isn't super crazy. So I am honestly, I've always described myself as hypersexual, if that makes sense. I enjoy, I guess I'm not going to give a list here of what I enjoy, but I enjoy being sexual. The sex positive thing is really important to me. I think that people should be more open about it and, do the things that you want to do for fun.
Yeah.
As long as everybody's safe and happy and consent and all that.
Exactly.
Then, yeah.
Do you think that you'll end up getting married again or having a long-term relationship again, or you like where you are now?
Well, I'm looking for that connection. For me, it's always been the connection.
Yeah.
Sex to me is tied to that connection.
Okay.
So I think that sex is only rewarding for me when there is that connection. Like you can, have a one night stand or whatever, but it's not fulfilling. To me, what's fulfilling is the everything else that goes with it,
Yeah.
which is what started happening with the affair partner over time, to the point where, we were talking about life and in-depth things, and we had more of that connection on top of having this like ridiculous sexual chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
It was the connection that made it so special. So for me, I am looking for a relationship, a long-term one, but with somebody who would be open to adding people to our fold, or I wouldn't describe myself as polyamorous, but definitely like I would be open to being with somebody who would allow me to go out and have those experiences, because we knew we would end up sleeping together in our bed that night together,
Yeah.
as a couple.
That was the one set that I did read about, where it was saying the polyamorous marriages or relationships very rarely work. That there's a super, super small percentage of them where there's not a jealousy problem or an anger problem, or one person's getting more attention than the other person or something like it's a difficult relationship to be in, I would imagine.
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't say I necessarily would fit into that category per se, but because I like the connection, I'd like a regular person to be the extra, but I don't want them living in my house. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, sort of. Trying to piece it together is, I was quite promiscuous when I was younger, and then when I decided to get married, I decided that was the one and only. I got to sneeze. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's a bad thing to do on the radio or on the podcast. That there's challenges inside relationships when you do make that decision, and because I had kids, I wanted to last as long as I can. And like I said, I think everyone is going down that road, and you're trying to build something long term or great. Yeah, only your hand.
Okay, good.
I had to check to make sure I didn't lie to you.
I appreciate
it. Yeah, and as a married man, you do run into those where it's not as exciting as it used to be, and then you talk and you can work through those problems. But it sounded like, and I don't want to blame your husband, but it sounds like he was maybe unsure what he needed to do in the relationship.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not saying this is all on him either, but definitely, he was dealing with a whole host of his own stuff that was happening with work and life, and I just was over there feeling like second place.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was going to talk about, because that's quite often in relationships that people do, right? I talk to men in my community and my friends and stuff like that, and I almost think like we probably should take second place. Not every day and all the time, but our family should come first,
yes,
right? And I don't know from a woman's side what they should feel or think or do. I just know from a man's side that, you know what, my wife should come first, my kids should come first, and then I should come second, or maybe even third. I think sometimes a dog gets a little bit more than I do, but that's just on my whiny days. If people had that mentality going into a relationship, that I'm always going to be second, or I'm always going to be bottom of the list. And I think as you become a parent, you come further down that list, right? Like kids are, they don't have to be, but they should be at the top of the list, is my thought. Yeah. And you seem like a very, very nice lady. You got pictures of your kids on your phone, and you seem very, very sweet. So I'm assuming that you're not a devious person, you're not a hurtful person.
No.
That wasn't anything you were trying to do.
No, I'm I sometimes describe myself as the horniest PTA mom you've ever met.
That's pretty funny. Maybe that's what it is, a lack of it Well, no, because I don't even necessarily buy. I was going to say it's a lack of like, people that restrict themselves for religion or, for whatever reason, shyness. And then all of a sudden they come out of that shyness, they want more. So does that seem to ring true to you?
For sure. And I think that, especially for women, that the older we get, the more confident we are, right?
Yeah.
Where you hit a certain age and you're like, you know what? Now I know what I want. I'm sick of, being that girl who just concedes to men and here's what they want to do. Just, I need to make my man happy. I'm like, no. I'm going to take what I want and I'm going to do what I want to make me happy and satisfied. So it's, I don't know. It's maybe I've hit a certain age and I was like, you know what? I'm like, it's like an awakening almost. Like I want to do these things and experience these things and do what makes me happy.
Yeah, I get that. So you're obviously a professional. I think do you want to talk about your job or do you want to tell people what you do or what industry you're in?
Sure. Okay. I do legal work.
Okay.
I'm professionally employed, full time. I'm very involved in my kids' school.
Yeah.
PT
mom.
Yeah,
PTA
exactly.
Mom. Yeah.
So I'm quite like an active member of my community. So one thing I say in the blog sometimes is look around because I might be right beside you, and I'm just telling my story, but I'm not unusual. I think there's more of me's out there than you would think.
Yeah.
Just based on the people who reach out to me through the blog or the website or the Instagram account. There's a ton of people, and I'm not some deviant. You wouldn't think anything different of me if you saw me walking down the street.
Yeah.
And I, there's some people, of course, online who have the the wrong idea of what I'm trying to do and think, I'm out trying to,
you're easy, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's not the point, and that's not who I am either. And I don't, I'm not out there sleeping around and, putting myself in any sort of danger. Yeah. And, I don't know. I'm just a normal person. Overall, I think I'm just a normal person.
Well, I think it's quite possible to be, I because I'm goal orientated. I like people that are goal orientated. So like I said, we had a baseball guy on the other day and we talked very little about baseball and a whole bunch about like coaching and goals and how do you set them, because that's where my mindset is most of the time, right? Like even the company that I manage, I'm trying to get my guys to set personal goals inside the company and so you can have great people that have something that's different, right? Like you look at an MMA fighter punches people in the face for a living, right? That would seem odd to a lot of people that someone would choose a career in fighting or even a hobby. Like how many people go to kickboxing and boxing and jiu-jitsu, and you just have, I want to say, like a sexual hobby.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that a good description?
Yeah. But I guess just to set the record straight on that, I have gone on a couple of dates since being single. But
how long have you been single?
Not long.
Okay.
This is all fresh. So I split up from my husband in August, and the affair partner, the last time I saw him was in September.
Okay.
So I'm clean now.
Do you use dating sites?
You know what? I got myself a Hinge profile.
I don't even know what Hinge is.
Either do I.
Okay.
And I got like 3/4 of the way through setting up a profile, and I could not do it. I was like, "This is ridiculous."
I'd just be swipe right.
Yeah, like
or is it left? I don't know.
I don't even know either. But it was a frustrating process to try to set that up, and I know that I'm not ready to be dating people.
Yeah.
But I have met a couple of interesting people like through Instagram, which is apparently also a thing these days.
It's news to me.
I know.
Haven't got any offers.
So I actually do want to talk about one of them. One of them is a fellow by the name of Jack, and he reached out to me quite early on. And he has never once asked me out. Wow. First of all, he's never once tried to suggest anything untowards.
Yeah.
But he did have a ton of advice for me. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is that he said, at some point, you are going to have to decide how you want this blog to end. And I was like, what do you mean I want it to end?
I was thinking about that too, because I mean, that was sort of my question earlier, is that are you doing the experiences so you have material for the blog, or are you doing the blog just to help?
So that's exactly what he said. Is he said, I don't want to see you put yourself in situations where you're doing something that you wouldn't necessarily do or don't fully want to do just to have material. And I thought that was really interesting. So I've juggled a little bit with whether I want to start adding fiction in or having people submit to me to be posted. But so what I've done is I've done a couple of flashback posts, are my most recent ones. And I did, I did have a date with somebody else from Instagram that went. It went pretty well. I'm still waiting for date 2, so we'll see if it happens. But I kind of posted a little bit about that, and then everybody was like, "Oh, what's happening with that? What's happening with that?" And I was like, you know what? It's too premature to write about that.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody else to not want to go on a date with me for fear I'm going to write about it. I probably will.
So the people that you have gone on a date with know you have this blog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is also a weird starting ground for
I would say
a date, right? I'm like, well, you know a lot about me. So how about you tell me about you?
No kidding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does the end look? Because if I was to choose something, I always choose what I think is best. So I would choose for you to find a healthy relationship that worked well and was good for you and good for the other person and good for your kids. And like Jordan Peterson, it has to be good for you and your family and the community and the world around you.
Yeah, I would definitely choose that ending too.
Yeah.
I think there'll probably be, a couple fun things that happen in the interim, and that's the ending I want.
Do you ever think this will end up being in a book?
I don't know. So one of the other things that my friend Jack taught me about was a woman who was an erotica writer by the name of Anais Nin. And she published diaries of hers, and she was, well before her time. I think she was born in like early 1900s. So
early 1900s.
I know.
Wow.
I know. And she was quite, a tramp for those days.
That's an old word. That probably fits the time.
Yeah. But I have just been loving reading those, and I think that that's amazing. And some of the things she says too is that she says, this diary is my opium. Yeah. This diary is like my drug.
Yeah.
So
do you feel that way?
I do. Yeah, I do. I absolutely love writing it, and I don't know how it ends. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but it's quite an interesting thing. Like, and erotic, like writing erotica is underappreciated art form, I guess.
I would like you're a very good writer. I think I said that the first time I messaged you online. So I don't know how we ended up. I think we got some mutual friends or something, and so I'm always looking for guests. And I was like, oh, this could be interesting. I read your blog. I'm like, holy Dinah, like this is. It's really, really well written. It's very descriptive, and if you're living it, obviously, it's easier to do that than well, maybe not. Some people make up some great, great stuff. That I was wondering if that was your passion. And even though it says, these are all real life experiences, I was just super curious. Like I didn't know whether that was true or not, because it could all be fiction because it works, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to build a writing career or whatever you're trying to do, that's the way you would do it.
Well, and it's funny because I pay for my website. I don't have ads on there. I'm not making money from this. It's literally was something that I started to heal myself and to let it out, because it's such a secret. It's a dirty little secret. And maybe that was my way of kind of getting it off my chest and trying to heal. And
Why do you think it is the dirty little secret? Because it's not like it's a secret that women have sex. And I don't know. Like it again, if I can choose for anybody, it'd be like you find a perfect relationship and you live out your life in a good relationship. Not the perfect relationship, but you find it great. That's what I would hope for everybody. That's what I would want for my friends, my family, my community. I think that's the best basis. But why is it such a dirty secret?
a lot of that stuff is still taboo, right? And I definitely wouldn't say that I'm into things that are like over the line taboo. I think
What's over the line taboo?
I don't know. Like, so, I don't know. I guess, I'm not into any BDSM,
What's
like,
BDSM?
like,
You
like
got the
whips and
dumbest-
chains, whips and chains.
Okay.
Like, I'm not into any of that,
Yeah. Bondage.
Yeah,
and-
yeah. I mean, but great if you are. That's fantastic if that's something you like to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a whole world out there, but I think, especially for women, is when I was growing up, the worst thing that you could be was a slut.
I remember in high school, the girl that slept with 2 or 3 guys was the slut.
Yeah.
And
So
they would, it was almost like culture would breed them to keep doing that. Where, if you call someone dumb or stupid or ignorant long enough, that's who they believe they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that we all grow up with that stigma in the back of our minds, and you think, wow, well, I better not tell him I'd like to, also be with his friend and her.
Yeah.
Because for fear of judgment, I guess, basically you have to know your audience, and you don't really let that stuff out unless you're with people you trust.
Yeah. So again, back to the goals thing, and what was it Jack was saying was that are you starting to think about what your goals are with the blog or with your relationship, or like where do you want to take it? And because like I said, you're a good writer. I think this could go, you can build an online audience. There's lots of things you can do. You can start advertising on your website, and are you ever going to go down that road?
I think yeah, because it's so fun for me.
Yeah.
So I would like to continue it, and using Instagram as a tool has been helpful for me too, because I have, I've opened it up at times on my stories and said, hey, tell me your stories. And, people would submit stuff. And so I would, edit their names out of everything and I would post it up. But, on the stories, it only lasts there for 24 hours, just as something that's kind of, but I was getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of views on those.
Wow.
So I think that people want to hear other people's stories too.
Yeah.
So maybe it just doesn't have to be about me at some point, and we can open it up to other people telling their stories.
Have you seen those Facebook pages? They're called like Airdrie Confessionals or Calgary
yeah,
Confessionals.
yeah.
That's sort of what it seems like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
People get to share. Most of them are like ridiculous. Like, I'm so mad at this person, or
Oh, yeah,
right, or
yeah.
they're calling someone out. They're calling them slutty or whore, or a thief or
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be. But that might be a way for people to also, I don't know, either just get a story out there that they want to write or tell, or to get out their real life experiences.
Oh, for sure. And I don't mind, I don't mind being the writer behind it. If you want to, give me your material and I can make it into a story, that would be fun too.
Do you have a background in writing? Like, did you study it in college, or had you written other things before this?
I've always loved writing, but my background is actually in journalism.
Okay.
So I mean, I like the investigation piece. I like the the writing for sure.
This would be a good podcast too. You could verbally tell the stories, and it might be as exciting as writing them.
So here's another suggestion actually that I had from someone online was reading my stories. They were like, well, read them. And I was like, well, who am I going to get to read them? Because I don't necessarily want it to be my voice.
I think it has to be your voice. It's ridiculous when an author writes a book and has someone else read it for him for the audiobook. You don't even believe the book.
Yeah, that's true. But apparently it's a thing. So my friend Jack again. It just always comes back to Jack because he's an artist, first of all.
Yeah.
So when he said that, he reached out and said I was an artist, and I was like, I'm a what? And he's like, yeah, you're an artist, you're a writer.
For
Like
sure, yeah.
this is a thing. Anyway, Jack said that he used to read to patients at the Foothills Hospital.
Really?
And there was people that were like, do you have any erotica? And I was like, oh, damn, maybe I should start recording some of this.
I like suggesting everyone have a podcast. I've got a friend at work that's starting one because I think his wife passed away, I want to say 5 or 7 years ago. I only met him about a year and a half ago. But he's been dating since. Like, he raised his boys, when they became, teenagers, he was like, I can date now. And, they went through their healing process. But it's pretty horrific dating in your late 30s and early 40s. There's a lot of broken people out there. And so he wants to do a podcast where he just talks about the dates and bring people in. Like, tell us your experience with, what's the other dating app, the main one?
Oh, Tinder.
Tinder.
Yeah.
Like he was on Tinder for a while, and he's like, that is ridiculous.
Maybe Tinder's profiles are easier to set up. I should check it out.
You would imagine, me and my wife met through a dating service. It wasn't online at the time. So I firmly believe in him. I think it's a great way. It's a numbers game, like my wife says, right? Like, I wasn't open enough to just go tap someone on the shoulder at Safeway and say, hey, you're really cute. You want to go for coffee? It's easier when you're at a bar and you've had a couple of drinks, you make eye contact, you can make things happen that way. But it's not necessarily the best way to meet people either. So I believe wholeheartedly in the online dating thing. I think it probably, with the right intent, it could work well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But you're not going to do it?
I mean, at some point I probably will.
Yeah.
I think so. But you know what? I'm not there. I'm not ready for anything serious. I still have a lot of healing to do.
Yeah.
I still have to get myself right before I can be right for anybody else.
Be in a healthy relationship.
Yes, yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine on the podcast. He wrote a book, so we brought him on. No, I don't have his book yet. I think it's coming out like this week. But we were talking. He's been in therapy for a long time. He's got a degree in not psychology, not sociology, philosophy.
Okay.
And so he's gone through some hardships in life and some breakups, and he's in therapy. And I'm like, how many people do you think need to be in therapy? He's like, everyone. 100% of people.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been thinking about it really hard. Like, I've been going through my work benefits, and I'm like, is this covered? Because maybe I need therapy. I don't know if I do. I feel okay. Things are working okay.
It can never hurt, in my opinion.
That's what I'm thinking, is that, and maybe we do it on the podcast, that I would bring my therapist in and we would just do the whole thing right here on the mics. That would be ideal to me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I grew up with social workers very close to me, to my family. So actually, I recall sitting at a dinner table and be like, are you saying that to me because I'm case study 101?
So these were just friends and family members?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been around, that kind of atmosphere. So therapy for me is, just a given. I think it's really important.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it should just be part of, like, you go yearly or bi-yearly to get a physical that you have to see a therapist twice a year at least to make
for
sure. Right?
And it's so funny how our decisions are tied to, what I'm going to say something totally cliche, but everybody has their wounds, and one thing that I've learned is that we'll keep making the same mistakes unknowingly. But we'll make the same decisions that lead us to the same situations that we were wounded by at some other point in life until we figure out how to get it right.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. So heal the wounds so you can move on and quit getting yourself in that same scenario.
100%. So I did book study. It was by John Eldridge. It's called Wild at Heart, and it was about repairing your relationship with your father, because every father hurts their children through being angry, yelling, ignorance, ignoring them. Like, there's all these things that people as a whole do, but a father's relationship affects differently than a mother's
Yep.
Anyway, I don't want to get deep into it, but it was powerful for me. And I'm like, I'm making this decision because my dad did or my dad said. And I did it with 50 other guys in a room. And like at one point, they ask you to stand up and tell the most hurtful thing that your dad did. And like guys are standing up talking about, and guys aren't good at this in the first place, and so then you have to do it in front of 50 people, and we're all bawling our eyes out. It was ridiculous.
It's powerful stuff, and we all hold on to those wounds, and we make decisions in our own life based on the walls that we kind of build around that hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny you mentioned that because my parents, like my dad, had an affair on my mom, and I didn't know that until I was a teenager. Like that was shielded from me when I was really young.
They stayed together anyway.
They did not stay together.
Okay.
They divorced because of it, and I thought, what a piece of crap! I would never do that. I would never do that. So that is another one of the things that, you know, that I had to balance out when I was making this decision. And I thought, oh my gosh, how did I get to this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had this exact discussion with a friend today where we have a group over every Sunday, but we were talking about the things that make us most angry. Like if our kids do something, we get very angry at them for it. It's probably because we see the worst part of ourselves in them.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that gets us the angriest. And we've never dealt with that hurt, that pain, that bad decision, whatever it is, we've never dealt with it.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is one of the things that I was thinking about that that I thought obviously this all came from some kind of hurt that, you know, as a dad, I take everything blame first on myself, right? If my, and he hasn't done this, but if my son was to steal, I'd be like, okay, what did I do? Or what is my part in this problem that we're having as a family? And so I assumed that there was something like that in your past as well, that there had to be some kind of hurt. And honestly, I blame dads right off the bat.
Or men, period.
Men as a whole,
yeah.
We had Serena Love, an artist, on here a little while ago, and I'm like, men are awful people. Like the thoughts of good, like, I think I'm an okay guy. I hold back the demons. I don't do the bad stuff. For the most part, I keep my life together very, very well. But I still know the bad thoughts that I have. And even my pastor today was talking. He goes, I get angry in parking lots and think about running people over.
Well, if you do, that's okay for me.
Well, sort of, yeah. Like we have these thoughts as men that we're, you know, I don't know, they're just evil thoughts, like beating the daylights out of somebody or hitting them with a bat, or like we just have these evil thoughts. I don't know where they come from, why we have them, but most part, general population can control them, probably out of fear of going to jail, right? You can't talk everybody to come to the gym with you and spar with you, so you just don't end up doing it. So was there something like that in your life, other than your dad having an affair?
Yeah, I think for me it was my relationship with my mom was also very strained. My mom picked men over me. So after she split up with my dad, she was married another 2 times, which is also another path that I didn't want to go down myself. But so I watched her, and I watched her choose men over me. So that there was that being second place thing.
Yeah.
So I had this crazy idea that I needed to be somebody I wasn't necessarily I guess I wasn't being my authentic self with people in relationships at times, because I thought they would leave, they wouldn't like me the way I was. So, you know, I guess I had people come and go from my life, and so I had to adjust my behavior accordingly, if that makes sense. So when I became second place in my marriage, I was like, oh boy, here it is, right? It was that familiar place.
Yep.
Now, did I choose my partner unknowingly because I knew, right?
Yeah.
I knew I would be second place in that situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely that's where I ended up.
That's so crazy, right? Because we think we're making our own decisions. And I think very rarely are we as human beings making our own decisions. It's everything around us is playing a part in it, right? Every relationship we've had, every time you stubbed your toe or watched a movie or heard a song, everything is playing a role in the decision that you're making.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah. I don't know who has said it lately, like you have to think about the diet that your mind's getting. You have to think about the diet that your spirit is getting, that your emotion is getting, and evaluate those. Like we talk about, my wife's a holistic nutritionist, so we talk about food a lot. But that's not the only nutrients that I'm getting, right? Whatever I watch on TV or hear on the radio or
The books you're reading and
the books you're reading, who you're talking to, all affect your decisions. And there's no way that it can't.
I agree with that 100%.
So in therapy, do you guys talk about that? Is it just about the hurts, or are they talking about like, what are you doing going forward to not let this happen again?
Yeah. So I do solo therapy and therapy with my ex-husband. And in my solo work, I'm working on a lot of my childhood wounds.
Yeah.
So I've had, like over this past summer, I had some really difficult conversations with family members, setting boundaries, being honest about the way I felt at times in the past, letting go of guilt. That's a go-to emotion for me.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff we're working on at this moment. So then in my group sessions, we're focusing more on communication, our household, how to what to do with the kids. We're getting lots of advice on how to talk to the kids about our situation and how to be the best parents we can be in this situation. So it's more focused on moving forward in the group. And then for my solo work, we're definitely going backwards to try to find the root.
There's so many good programs out there that does this. At our church, we call it freedom sessions, and I haven't done it yet, mostly because I'm scared to dig into your past and all the things that you've done and try to correct those or at least, I don't know, make peace with it as best as you can. It's scary. It's scary to think about doing that stuff. So is that harder now, you being in therapy, than even being in the marriage?
Yeah, I'm digging up a lot of really old wounds
Yeah.
and figuring out why, some things, if you and I were sitting here talking, you say, well, why did you make that decision?
Yeah.
And I might not have a concrete answer for you. But the digging we're doing at therapy is really giving me a little bit of that why. Well, here's why you did that, and maybe why you chose to do this, because, your past would have led you to a certain decision. And it's starting to at least connect some of the dots so I don't feel like, I'm way out in left field somewhere, which is nice and it's reassuring. But at the same time, it's like, why didn't I do this so long ago? Like, why did I waste so many years feeling a certain way when I didn't have to.
I think having good communication skills. So I imagine you and your husband in therapy together, that's probably 90% of what you work on is good communication.
Yeah.
I recently, I say reading, I'm listening to a book called Crucial Conversations. It's an insanely good book to have difficult conversations, which as we get older, I think they're more and more crucial to have those conversations. When you're young, it's, I don't know. No, I shouldn't say that. It's true to have those crucial conversations all the time. But one of the things that it talks about is having a goal in a conversation. This was my struggle with you today. I was like, what is my goal of this podcast? How am I going to get it out there? What kind of questions may I ask? How open are you going to be to going deep and stuff like that? And I'm trying to think through this book and I'm like, what am I doing or what am I trying to achieve? So is that what you guys are doing in therapy? Is like, are you setting a goal for how you communicate?
Yeah, exactly. And we're giving things timelines to a degree. It's not like, well, we want to be at this point at this date. No, but we're saying, okay, first of all, we're on completely different stages of our split up because I had that kind of mental checkout that I mentioned earlier. That happened for me years ago.
Yeah.
So there was no crying for me when the actual split up happened. Okay.
Yeah.
There was sadness. Absolutely. But for him, that was the wall. Like he admits now in therapy that he wasn't blindsided by it for sure. He was well aware that there were issues, but there was a long period of him crying and being at that stage of grief, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're in two very different stages of our split up right now.
Yeah.
Where, we're living apart, and, he's has significantly less responsibility at this current juncture of the kids most of the time. And, you know,
But there's got to be some loneliness in that.
Yes. So that's what I'm struggling, I guess, to understand. And part of me is a little jealous of that too. I'm like, well, wouldn't I like to be, going to yoga?
We all say that, but when they're not here, like when my wife and kids go away, and I'm like, oh, it's good for about 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
And then I'm all done with that.
Yeah. So he's definitely in the phase where he's all done with that.
Yeah.
And he's definitely lonely, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm managing a household, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
finances and goal
finances
setting,
and
planning.
I had a sewer backup, and I'm like, dang, like what do I do with this? Would have been something he would have dealt with before.
Everyone has jobs in a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And so I feel like I have less time to work on things, and he has all the time in the world right now to work on things.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, so when we get together in therapy, it's interesting to see where we're at, because I'm like often quite flustered and like, well, I haven't really had a chance to, dwell on this or think about that. And he's like, oh, I've had a lot of time to think. So
I shouldn't be laughing, but there was almost a bit of evilness in your voice when you just see that he's that's all he's got his time now, right? He gets done work and then he spends, 5-6 hours all by himself dwelling on it.
For sure.
Do you think that having your affair partner, was he helpful in the breakup? Like, was it part or the opposite?
The opposite. Here's the thing, is that part of me wanted to be with the affair partner.
Yeah.
Silly. Really.
Well, because your guys' agreement was that it was going to be an affair. Like
yes.
there was nothing else to it. So now all of a sudden the girl is free and the guy's like, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was clear. I knew that that's not what he signed up for. But there was a part of me that was always hoping that he would choose me. And then look where I was again, second place.
Well, and it's you went through 2 breakups, not 1.
Oh yeah, 2.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And 1 is secret.
Yeah. And because he's still married, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And his wife has no idea?
Nope.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where people find the time.
That's been actually quite a relief, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Is that the sneaking, I am so happy to be done with that.
Yeah.
It was like time consuming and stressful.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be done with that.
I'm trying to remember the sermon exactly, but it was talking about sin and how sin, it's wrong. Like, so the things that we do, like the sneaking, that was the wrong part for you. You didn't like you're okay with the act and that you actually want that to be part of your relationship, but you don't want anything sneaky. You don't want to be deceptive. You don't want to be a liar.
Yeah.
And that's where the majority of the stress comes in. Whatever you determine to be the sin, as it were.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it does. It was like a huge weight was lifted when I, obviously it was really difficult for it to be over, but it had to be. And, because my timeline is my husband and I stopped living together in August, and I still was seeing the affair partner into September.
Yeah.
And it became increasingly clear that it couldn't continue. No, it wasn't going to work. He was jealous. If I wasn't available, he would be like, "What? Like, what? Why are you not available to me? You should be free now to do you have a date?" So it was like he didn't want me, but he didn't want anybody else to have me either. So it came to a head, and basically one of the things that I said was, I'm never going to be able to move on if you're in my life.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I would always want him to choose me.
Yeah.
And even though I know that that wasn't the right,
Yeah.
but those were my wounds. My wounds were wanting me to love him because
Yeah.
he wouldn't choose me first, because that's what love is to me.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Human beings are crazy. And
Yeah.
I'm not being judgmental at all. Because I
Yeah.
know, because I said it to my wife one time. We were in an argument. And I'm like, you know, you're crazy. And she goes, you know, you're crazy too. I went, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all nuts. There's no perfect way to do anything.
Right.
We're just
Yep.
trying to figure out how to get through life and how to make it work, and our desires and our passions. How do we make that? Like, what are you willing to give up to have this type of relationship, or what are you willing, that's the challenge that we're always having.
Yeah.
And what's the right system?
Yeah. I mean, so with my affair partner, why I felt so connected to him was that we found other partners to be with us together.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through some that were good and some that were bad. And we had to have those difficult conversations and say, here's my limits, or it is not okay with me if you do A, B, or C, and vice versa, and have those and that's what I want in a partner moving forward. I want to be able to say, okay, so we're a bit more open and experimental than some, okay, but communication is the key to making it work, because, and I think that's probably why polyamory has a low success rate, is that
Human beings as a whole don't communicate well.
Yeah, and so part of the reason why I felt like such a connection to this affair partner was that I always felt at the end of the day it was about him and I.
Right.
And there was that connection there, and anybody else was just like gravy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so there was a few very difficult situations that we encountered together that I thought brought us even closer. And so maybe I romanticized the idea of him being my partner, because then it would be easy. And how do you find a partner on Tinder and then say, oh, by the way, here's everything I'm into? At least the people that reach out to me on Instagram, you know what you're getting into here.
They know what they're getting, exactly.
Yeah, but also they have many of the people who reach out have the wrong idea.
Yeah,
that's for darn sure. Yeah.
So here's a question for you: if you met the person in the relationship that you want, someone that you guys can have multiple partners together, apart, you could be open to communication well, but he goes, "I don't want you to tell anybody about it. No more writing."
I feel like that's fair.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
You would give up on the writing, the whatever it's going to bring for the relationship.
I would give up the writing about that.
Yeah.
But can I still, I'm all about compromise. So can I write about something else? The thing is that I would love to stop writing about the affair partner. I know so I stopped writing about it. And then, I started writing about, going on this date and whatever. And then I freaked out about writing about what I'm doing now, because I don't think it's anyone's business till I figure it out. I need to figure out my own self right now.
Yeah.
But then I flash back. So my last post and the one coming out tomorrow is a continuation. So it's about the affair partner. And at some point I need to move forward from that. So I definitely know that there's got to be a shift.
Does he know you were writing about it?
No.
Nobody knows you write it. This is why the secret, or why there's nothing or why this is so secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for my own healing, but I don't want to hurt anybody else.
Right.
As an outcome. Is there the chance that might happen? Yes, absolutely.
Imagine, again, you look like a very nice mom. You look like a very good person. Talking to you, I can just feel like you're a good person. Mm-hmm. So you'd never want your kids to learn about this. You definitely don't want your husband or your ex-husband to learn about it. So you're back to that same problem, though. Like you were having an affair and you were being deceptive, and that's the thing you hated the most.
Yeah. So it needs to just,
Eventually, it seems like you're going to tell everybody who you are and what you're writing.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe that'll be part of my healing. Here I am. Judge me. Do you want to take me out into the courtyard and throw tomatoes at me or whatever?
Stone you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I love maybe I should have been a psychologist or psychiatrist. I don't know. I love the human brain. I love hearing stories and why people do things. And I try very hard not to be judgmental because I'm obviously not a perfect person by any means. So I love that you're sharing this in the way that you're sharing this. And I hope you would come back again and we could do this again and share. I want to honor your time because I said we'd be about an hour and a bit, and we're just over an hour in now. Because I know you got to go pick up your kids.
I do. I got a mom.
You got a mom.
I got a life.
And I know how hard it is to do parenting stuff and all the extracurricular activities that I like to do. So, again, I really, really appreciate you coming on here.
Of course.
It was way less weird than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Good.
And way easier. You're a very easy person to talk to, and I'm
good.
glad you're as open as you are. So hopefully in a few months, come back on, tell us some new stuff that's going on, talk about your writing some more.
Perfect.
And you got to figure out how to go to outro because I normally have a monkey to do this. So everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on. Go check out Sex in the YYC. Super well written blog. If you're into erotica or anything like that, you will love this writing. And I usually say their names and thank you, and so I'm not going to do that. I am just going to go to outro. Hey everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. This podcast is over.